Chapter 4. Beau the Market Provides. The morning air was crisp and artificial, carrying the faint scent of roasted coffee and freshly baked bread through the open-air terrace of the Riviera. Beau Wilder leaned back in his chair, feet propped up on the empty seat across from him, a half-eaten plate of breakfast in front of him. Life was good. Dane strolled over with 2 steaming cups of coffee, dropping into the seat opposite him. "Man, you look too relaxed for someone who woke up 15 minutes ago." Beau grinned, plucking a sugar packet from the table. "Got to conserve energy. Long day ahead of me." Dane snorted. "Yeah? What's on the agenda?" Beau ripped the sugar packet open, lazily dumping it into his coffee. "Let's see. Breakfast, maybe a walk, sit by the water, see where the day takes me." Dane smirked, shaking his head. A true philosopher. Before Beau could fire back, a soft chime echoed through the plaza. The market's announcement tone. Every market link lit up at once. Beau glanced down at his phone as a new notification pulsed on the screen. So did everyone else. The market recognizes progress. Today we celebrate one of our own. Nate Raines has begun his journey. The market provides. A murmur spread across the terrace. Beau raised an eyebrow, tilting his screen toward Dane. "Any idea what this is about?" Dane barely looked at it before shrugging. "Nah, kid's getting his first tasks. That's how it works." Beau frowned slightly. "Since when?" Dane sipped his coffee, unbothered. "Since always. 16's when you start learning on your own." Beau blinked. "Weird. I could swear when I got here it was 21. Dane smirked. "You misremembering, old man?" Beau scoffed. "I'm 35, Dane, and I've only been here 5 years. Does that make me old?" Dane shrugged, unbothered. Well, guess they must have changed it. Makes sense, though, right? 16 is when you start taking responsibility." At the table next to them, a woman nodded approvingly. "It's always been 16. That's when you become a free man in your own right." Beau stared at her for a moment. "That's how it's always been." "Was it?" He exhaled, shaking off the thought, and reached for his coffee. "Guess that makes Nate Raines a man now." Dane raised his cup to adulthood. Beau clinked his cup against his friend's and took a sip. It tasted the same as always. But something about the morning felt different. His eyes drifted over the plaza, settling on a man standing near the fountain. He looked lost. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed like someone who had been here a long time, but something about him was off. His head tilted slightly as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. His phone was clutched in his hand, his eyes flicking from the device to the people around him. Beau frowned. He knew most faces around here. This guy, not familiar, and yet something about him was. Dane noticed him too. "You know that guy?" Beau hesitated before shaking his head. "Not sure, but he looks like he could use a table." Without thinking, he waved the man over. The stranger hesitated, then made his way toward them. Beau grinned up at him. "Hey man, you look like you could use some coffee." The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. Then he slowly nodded. "Yeah, that sounds good." Beau gestured to the empty seat. "Have a seat? The coffee is always free." Beau grinned. The man sat down, still holding his phone in his hand. He glanced around as if expecting someone to say something, as if expecting to be told he wasn't supposed to be here. Beau tilted his head. "What's your name?" The man hesitated, then looked Beau in the eye. "Gideon," he said. "Gideon Fletcher." Beau's grin widened. "Well, Gideon, welcome to the table." He pushed the extra cup of coffee toward him. Gideon stared at it for a long moment before wrapping his hands around it. For the first time that morning, he looked like he was somewhere he was supposed to be. Gideon Fletcher held his cup of coffee, fingers wrapped tightly around the warm ceramic. Beau watched him over the rim of his own cup, studying the way he glanced around the terrace, like someone seeing Verosphere for the first time. Or like someone who wasn't supposed to be here. Dane leaned back in his chair, stretching lazily. "So, Gideon, you new around here?" Gideon nodded without hesitation. "Yeah, just got here yesterday." Beau arched a brow. "Huh, I thought they usually made an announcement for new arrivals." Before he could ask more, a voice interrupted from nearby. "Gideon?" They all turned. A woman stood a few steps away, a steaming coffee cup in one hand, her phone in the other. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant bun, her posture perfectly poised. Beau knew Evie. Everyone knew Evie. She was one of those people who never seemed out of the loop. If something was happening in Verosphere, she knew about it before most. And right now, she was staring at Gideon like she'd seen a ghost. Gideon blinked at her, confused. Sorry, do we know each other? Evie's expression didn't shift right away. She studied him, her eyes scanning his face as if searching for something. Then, after a beat too long, she smiled. Well, I didn't expect to see you here. Beau frowned. That was an odd way to phrase it. Not see you again, just see you. Gideon's brow furrowed slightly. I don't think we've met. Evie's grip tightened around her coffee cup. Beau barely caught it, the briefest flicker of something in her eyes. Shock, confusion, disappointment, then just as quickly she smoothed it over with a polite chuckle. Oh, I must be mistaken. You just reminded me of someone. Beau leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Yeah? He said, eyeing her. Who? Evie hesitated, just for a second. Then she let out a light laugh, shifting the cup in her hands. An old friend, she said smoothly. Someone I haven't seen in a while. Beau tilted his head. Someone from here? Naturally. Beau's eyes flicked toward Gideon, whose confusion only deepened. I've never been here before, Gideon said, frowning. This is my first day out in the plaza. Evie was quiet for half a second too long. Then she nodded, almost to herself, and gave him a small smile. Of course, she said. Beau narrowed his eyes. You sure about that? Evie finally turned her gaze back to him, amusement flickering across her features. What exactly are you asking, Beau? Beau tapped his fingers against the table. I'm asking why you looked like you saw a ghost when you recognized a guy who supposedly hasn't been here before. Dane whistled softly. Dang, man, you don't mess around. Gideon shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe I just... Evie interrupted smoothly, her voice even. Beau, you ask a lot of questions for someone who claims to be comfortable here. Beau grinned. Gotta keep life interesting. Evie took a slow sip of her coffee, watching him over the rim. Fair enough. She set the cup down. Let's just say he reminds me of someone who used to be here. Beau leaned in. And that someone was named Gideon? Evie held his gaze, not blinking. Yes. Gideon stiffened slightly. But I've never been here before. Evie's lips pressed together, but she nodded. If you say so. Her tone was unreadable. She turned back to Beau. Anything else you'd like to ask me, or was that sufficient for your curiosity? Beau exhaled slowly, watching her for a beat before shaking his head. Nah, that's plenty for now. Evie gave a small, knowing smile. Good. She stood, smoothing her dress, and nodded once to Gideon. It was nice seeing you. Enjoy your morning, gentlemen. And with that, she walked away, leaving them in silence. Gideon looked at Beau. What the hell was that? Beau just shook his head, staring after her. Beats me, he muttered, but something's off. Gideon exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. I swear I don't know her. I don't know anyone here. Beau wasn't sure what was more unsettling, the way Evie clearly knew Gideon, or the fact that Gideon had no memory of her at all. But one thing was certain. Somebody was lying.